Welcome to another exciting edition of the Trading Bell. Today we're coming to you from Athi River here in Kajiado County, and we are at the export processing zones. And one of the companies that is making a big difference in terms of creating jobs is Mass Intimates. This is where the various brands such as Calvin Klein and Tommy Hilfiger are being made here in Kenya. And we'll be speaking to the US ambassador to Kenya, that is Meg Whitman, who has just gotten to experience what happens here at the factory, and we'll be engaging her on the economic cooperation between Kenya and the United States of America. Join me for that discussion. Many thanks for joining us on the program.
Thank you, glad to be here.
A lot of excitement really now that you're in Kenya. Of course, your entry is literally full from the visa concerns as well as the bilateral trade. But I'd like us to first kick off this discussion with President William Ruto, who was recently in the United States of America. He did hold some interesting meetings with various leaders, including Secretary Blinken. Perhaps, what do you make of the talks, and what are we likely to see some of the key priority areas coming up?
Well, I think everyone was very excited to meet the new president because, as you recall, he was inaugurated and then literally left for the United Nations General Assembly meeting. He had a chance to meet with Secretary Blinken, which I think is a very important sign of the relationship between Kenya and the United States. Blinken did not meet with every head of state.
Sure.
So that was, I think, a big signal how important Kenya is to the United States and vice versa. He also had his picture taken with a pull aside with the President of the United States. Yeah. And so I think everyone was very anxious to meet him. And I think from what I understand, he had a great trip, and the United States was very pleased to help welcome him alongside the UN.
All right. And Ambassador, now that you're literally on the road in terms of getting the work done,
yeah.
Coming back from a business background and of course coming into diplomatic circles, what are some of the key areas that you'll be driving the agenda between Kenya and the United States?
Well, you recall I arrived on August 1st, and the Kenyan elections were August 9th. So yeah. I had to get up to speed very fast on Kenyan politics and the election process, and of course what the United States Embassy had done for a number of months to be a supporter on free, fair, and transparent elections. Yeah. And I think it went remarkably well. I think many people have said this was the freest, fairest, most democratic election in Kenyan history. So I think it went incredibly well, with help from a lot of international partners, but frankly, the Kenyan people.
All right.
Did an amazing job. So that was my first focus. My second focus, and still is, visas. When I got here, the first appointment that you could get as a Kenyan to come to the United States, the first interview appointment was June of 2024.
Sure.
And I said, this is not acceptable. We have to do better. So we've added staff. We've done business process re-engineering. How can we do things more efficiently and effectively? And we've also reduced the requirement. If you are a Kenyan who's had a visa in the last 4 years, you don't need to have another interview. Mm-hmm. So that has freed up a tremendous number of interview slots. And if you go on our website today, you can get an appointment between now and December.
Interesting. Quite a big relief for Kenyans.
Yes.
And really, how does this impact on the business community?
Well, it's very important because there are students who want to go to the United States. There's business people that want to go to the United States. I was at Exotic Nuts this morning, which is a woman-owned business. There's 3 partners. I met with 2 of them. And one of them had been to the United States to go to a trade show, but the other one couldn't get a visa. And so I told her this morning, go on, when we're done, go on the website and you'll be able to get an appointment before December. And that's important for them because they want to go and meet more future customers to grow their business here in Kenya, which, by the way, is a remarkable success story.
All right, quite some interesting moves you've made there, Ambassador. Let's get more into the aspects around business and trade. We did see you ironing some few minutes ago, and how did it feel, and what's the vibe that you're getting from the export processing zone companies that are here?
Well, you can imagine economic trade and development between our 2 countries is a very important priority for me because I have a business background. I'm not a career diplomat, I'm actually a businesswoman.
Sure.
And so I'm quite excited to see what more growth and development can be done between Kenya and the United States, and I think the opportunities are endless. So I said I wanted to go out today and see what was happening on the ground, and see places like Mass that are employing, they just started here in 2020,
sure.
and employ thousands of people now. And it was fun to go out and meet the young people. You can see out the window, it is a very young workforce. In fact, they told me there's just a few people on the floor who are over 30 years old. So they've trained all these people, and so it was fun to learn from a young Kenyan how to iron a Tommy Hilfiger sweatshirt. So
Amazing.
It was great, and it just gives you a sense of being part of something and understanding the excitement on the ground. You probably saw that when we were doing visas, I was doing fingerprinting.
Yeah, I saw that.
And so I just like to sort of see what it's like. Earlier today, I was putting tickets, badges, labels on some clothes at UAL. So it's just fun, and you just get a good sense of the vibrancy of these firms, which is amazing.
Speaking about economic cooperation and, of course, growing the trade numbers, we do know that the AGOA agreement is due to lapse in 2025, which is not too far from now.
Yeah.
And what opportunities are you seeing for negotiations, especially with Kenya?
Well, I think everyone agrees that AGOA has been an amazing success story. Just this past month, it was announced that the U.S. is Kenya's largest export market. We were number 2 to some of the East African countries, but now we're number 1.
Yeah.
And I think in large part explained by AGOA. Apparel exports to the United States have increased dramatically since AGOA was put into place. So everyone thinks it's a big success story, and we obviously want to work on making sure that continues to be an opportunity.
All right. And Ambassador, still staying with matters trade, of course, there are quite a number of areas of focus between Kenya and the United States. And what will be part of your key focus areas in terms of growing trade?
Yeah.
Over and above looking at elements such as AGOA, we also are looking towards seeing more trade numbers between the two countries.
Yes. Yes. I mean, we want to grow trade between Kenya and the United States. So Kenyan exports to the United States, American exports into Kenya, foreign direct investment by American firms into Kenya. And I have to say, I think Kenya is an incredible opportunity for U.S. foreign direct investment.
And Ambassador, you have a very rich background, having worked for eBay, HP, and you did make some amazing transformations in terms of growing the numbers, the bottom line. Looking at the ICT space, where you've, of course, exuded a lot of confidence in Kenya, are you already in talks with perhaps various startups? Are you looking to tap into different companies? And what should you expect in the next coming months?
Well, right now I'm on a mission to understand what is the state of play in Kenya. So I've been meeting with entrepreneurs, with venture capitalists, with the big companies, Safaricom, M-Pesa, Google, Microsoft. I had a meeting with the American Chamber of Commerce members, who are large American companies. So I'm still in a learning mode, and hopefully in the next month or two we'll have a little bit more focus about what industries and where I think the biggest opportunity is. But there's no question there's opportunity in agriculture, there's opportunity in apparel, there's opportunity in tech. There may be opportunities in lots of other places for us to do more business together. And I know that's consistent with President Ruto's objective. How to really increase employment and increase economic activity in Kenya. So we're all aligned on the importance of that.
All right. And as we come to the tail end of this interview, I'd like to pick your thoughts, especially on the President's agenda. He did outline that he's very keen to see we are able to cut down on wastage in regards to our budget spending. This is an area that will see a lot of austerity measures coming up. And from where you sit, what is your gut feeling in terms of, is the economy on the right trajectory? Are we likely to see an accelerated takeoff, especially now that we're seeing a lot of interest from our various bilateral partners?
Yes. Well, strategy always starts from the top of the organization, and President Ruto could not have been clearer that accelerating the growth of the Kenyan economy, by all means, was his most important priority. He also mentioned yesterday, I was at his first speech at the opening of Parliament, that, like so many countries around the world, Britain, the United States, others, has to make sure we're managing the cost side of the house as well as the investment side. And this is not unique to Kenya in any shape, form, or manner. But I think, at least as we sit here today, he's got the right strategy around building economic growth with partners, with every country around the world, and then making sure that the financial house in Kenya is in order. I mean, think about it. Think about your own budget as a maybe head of a family.
Yeah.
Ultimately, you really can't spend more than you bring in.
Sure.
Maybe from time to time you can, but ultimately,
occasionally,
your income needs to be greater than what you spend, and it's no different for countries.
Speaking about countries, I'm just looking at the bigger picture. We've seen a lot of interest by other nations such as China in terms of big ticket projects.
Yep.
And an area that Kenya is aggressively pursuing in terms of growing infrastructure and meeting the deficits that we have. How is the American government aligning itself with our priorities as a country, especially on the big ticket projects that we have lined up?
Well, as you know, America has not been as big a participant in those big ticket projects as some other countries. And I think we would like to have a chance to bring American companies into Kenya to see if they can be competitive for those big infrastructure projects. From what I understand, the infrastructure has grown tremendously here. I had a colleague from the United States government who hadn't been to Kenya in 10 years and said, the highway, there's so many things that have been done. And so we are certainly interested in that, but we're also interested in small to medium-sized enterprises, to getting the bigger companies who can hire more people, to training and development of Kenyan workers, because it may be that trained workers will be the limitation.
All right.
The training that MAS does here is very broad-based, and what they told me today is when they put their, they hire people, they have only a 1.5% turnover, meaning if they hire 500 people, 6 or 8 months later, only 1.5% have left, which is world class. World class. I haven't run into another country in the 190 countries I've done business in. You don't usually see that.
All right. Perfect place to end the conversation. Many thanks, Ambassador Meg Whitman, and always a pleasure having you on the show, and looking forward to hosting you very soon.
Good. Well, thank you very much for your time.
And while at it, keep enjoying Kenyan vibes.
Thank you. I've had a great time here. I've loved being in Kenya.
All right. Well, we've been speaking there to the U.S. Ambassador to Kenya, Meg Whitman, who is quite optimistic of the bilateral trade ties between the two countries, even as she continues being hands-on when it comes to delivering the foreign policy agenda here in Kenya in close consultations with the Kenyan government. Well, that brings us to the end of our show for today. Well, we leave you now with the markets update.
Time for markets analysis. I hope you're keeping well. My name is Maina Shege and I'm joined today by Samuel Gijohi, Head of Business Development at Nairobi Securities. Welcome, Samuel. It's good to see you.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
I know, right? Yeah. Let's first of all, before we even delve into how the markets are behaving, focus on how we are coming from a period of uncertainty. I think the last time you were here, we were talking about how uncertain things are. We were going through the election season, lots of things that were transitioning, and now we have had all the verdicts done, a government that has settled. How has the market behaved towards this direction so far?
Well, one, the government hasn't really settled, which is probably why we're still seeing quite a bit of uncertainty on the market. Mm-hmm. Although it is very clear that we're going to see some policies that probably will favor the market going forward. Mm-hmm. But my feel generally is that the elections are behind us. Yeah. They were not necessarily the cost of the uncertainty, because in the past we've generally seen markets become, markets go up. Yeah. The NSE sort of goes up before the election.
Yeah.
Apart from this one, because then the year to elections is when we've seen the geopolitical risks come up, with especially with the Ukraine conflict.
Absolutely.
But also that same uncertainty in those elections where the market does go up, you find that most local investors will tend to stay off the market.
Okay.
Foreigners will also go stagnant, which creates illiquidity. And again, high returns or those increases can be a function of that low liquidity, meaning there is demand, not that much selling because people have sort of stepped out of the market. And so it tends to push the prices up, but not necessarily the same volumes that you'd see in a normal year.
Let's get into the markets now, and I'll be asking you later on about the savings culture that is now the vibe everywhere, especially from the political ends of our things. Let's get to our markets here and look at, you know, what are you seeing when you look at the top gainers, top losers? Is there anything interesting that has interested you so far looking at this past week?
Well, what is clear is most of that movement is probably dividend hunting, activity. Because we don't see any major companies sitting on the gainers and losers. Just one or Safaricom on the losers side, and I think NCB on the other one. But most of the other companies there are pretty local, which also indicates that foreigners are not really active on the market. And so most likely driven by dividend or just exits, deciding they want to maybe, what we're seeing a lot right now in the background is restructuring of portfolios. People holding stocks they feel are toxic, and there is an opportunity when the likes of Safaricom are 25, 24, 50, or that area, then it means I would rather sell the toxic ones because their chances of going up is lower than if I buy Safaricom at a low price and it goes up.
You know, I would like you to comment on the losers side, because I see Safaricom, which is a rare occurrence when you see them at the top losers. And share price right now trading at about 24.45. And this is a counter that has sometimes performed greatly to the 30s almost. What's happening here?
Well, one, we've seen Safaricom touch that price, I think 3 or 4 times in the last 3 years, since COVID came. And normally around 24 is where it sort of settles and comes back. There's been a lot of things happening to Safaricom. Of course, one is several things have happened in the last few days. You know, we've seen some talk about the different parts of Safaricom, like M-Pesa and Safaricom and Fuliza. We've seen the Fuliza reduce its rates. I think they've just gotten some loan from IFC. I think it's 80 billion for the Ethiopia project. But that notwithstanding, most of this activity or decline is not even locally driven. It is foreigners exiting. And so it ties to what I was saying earlier. They might be saying, look, we have all this money sitting in Safaricom. The dollar is strengthening. They feel more it being more attractive to be sitting within the dollar. But what we've seen in the past, whenever it touches those levels, the local investors get in and really buy, which is a brilliant idea. So
it's actually a very good time then to buy the counter.
If for some reason in the next few days or next 1-2 months, the geopolitical risk or the Ukraine conflict sort of gets resolved, then it means inflation and all that will start to, to resolve, and investors will come back. So you'll be selling, and that's what happened with COVID. Some people made huge amounts of money. Quick comment about the indices. I don't see much movement here. When I look at them, they're almost like on a stagnation, sort of. I mean, we are, the liquidity is still, the volumes being traded are still quite low. We are not back to what we would expect. We have days where very little is traded on the market. So that plus there's still that level of uncertainty. A lot of people are either at where they bought or they're in a bit of loss. Or even some of them quite a big loss. So again, most people are just sitting back and waiting for some sort of volatility that will help them make an entry or exit decision.
Okay.
So as you said, yeah, this is more like a stagnation point.
Okay. When I look at all the top movers, these are the usual culprits, I think, in terms of movements of shares. So,
but look at how many shares have moved.
Oh, yeah.
It's very little.
Very little, by the way.
Yes. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. When there's all this uncertainty and everything, then there's much less activity.
Okay.
That the volumes traded are quite low.
Okay.
So that means no one's selling, no one's buying.
Thank you so much for that. Let's take a quick look at your questions. We have a question from Annette, and she's asking this question, Gishohi. Must one go through the CDSC to trade in the market?
CDSC is where your shares sit. That's where the database sits.
Yeah.
The beauty about CDSC is it allows, it's in the name, Central Depository and Settlement Corporation. Before CDSC, shares would settle, at one point it was T+21, then T+7, now it's T+3. Why? Because they're on an electronic database. Before it was paper, just like we have title deeds. Moving one title deed to another person is a whole process. So that's what CDSC's role is. Now, for CDSC to move the shares from one client to another, then it needs a broker again underneath who is the facilitator of the trade, and the Nairobi Securities Exchange, which is also the platform for the trade. So there are three things you must have to trade on the market. A stockbroker, the Nairobi Securities Exchange, because that's where the platform for trading is, and the CDSC, which is where the shares move. Now, today you cannot trade shares in certificate form. No. So you do need CDSC to trade.
There you have it. That's a well-answered question. And very quickly now, I think it's a definition part of it on the Markets 101. What is CBR? I think you've alluded to it in your conversation. Yes, but you could just mention very quickly.
Yeah, it's the central bank rate.
Yes.
It is usually determined based on, several factors, but it is an indicative rate. It is a reference rate. Which is then used to look at where, pricing of government papers and loans and all that kind of. So it's a rate that is a reference rate. This is where it is, and vis-a-vis the central bank rate, you can also be able to look at things like inflation, where they are, to see what sort of return you expect on your investments.
Wow. Samuel Gishohi, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. It's always a pleasure.
Pleasure as well having you. Very quickly, two reminders from our end here. Number one, remember that you can buy shares using your Bonga points. By this, Samuel, can you tell your people that they can buy using their Bonga points? It's important for them to know.
Yes, it's a very simple process. You can actually convert your Bonga points into cash and be able to use that cash to buy shares. And it's a very interesting, it's very innovative. I think when it was initially launched, we did see a lot of activity. Coming from Bonga points being transferred. 5 points
to a shilling, so you can imagine you have the ability to buy the minimum shares. With probably Bonga points, you don't even know what you're doing with, so you better check
Bonga points are savings.
They're savings, by the way.
They're savings. That's money you've saved,
Yeah, and of course, the second reminder, we have the University Challenge that has just started. You're not too late if you're a college student or a young professional, so you can just jump in, visit the NSC website, check out for the details, or even the social media for you to hang around with it. Samuel, let me not leave you with this. There's been this conversation about savings culture. Let's build it, especially coming from the political end of the new government of the day. And we know that for people to trade and to even get into the market, we encourage people to have that culture of savings as well. What would be your last word as a financial advisor? I know on the other side you also advise people on that. What would be your word for people to start their savings culture?
I think one of the things is to start to recognize your spending habits. Because especially the younger generation, they are in a space where everything that we watch on YouTube and all those other platforms is just showing you celebrities spending and enjoying life. So the tendency is to spend, and to want this and that. I mean, look at Facebook. When people go to Mombasa, they post, and so you think, hey, I want to be like, fear of missing out, is it? So I think some of it comes to that.
It's called FOMO.
And of course, having ideas of, trying to budget so that you're always left with something extra, which we call disposable income. And remember, when we say savings, investment is a form of saving.
You're right.
So if you save money and say put it in a current account, and it's not for business, there's no liquidity needed from that account, then it means you're losing an opportunity to earn interest.
Absolutely.
So what you need to do is learn about the different products, fixed deposits, fixed income accounts, unit trust accounts.
Absolutely.
And all those different things you can do because they give you money back for putting money there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
It's very good.
That's a mouthful. Thank you so much for,
and we give
for that
advice for free. So
yes. So take it in. There you have it. That's it for this episode of the Trading Bell Show. Remember to give us your feedback right at the social media handles and the platforms appearing at the bottom end of your screen. Thank you so much for your time. See you next time, same place, same time for another episode. Bye-bye.